Hi, I hope you all enjoying your summer. This is Fuad Abasov, a broker with Right at Home Realty, and this is your monthly real estate statistics. As we officially close out the first half of 2025, it's safe to say that Toronto's real estate market continues to keep both buyers and sellers on their toes. June didn't bring any dramatic changes, but it did reinforce a few key trends we've been seeing since spring. Interest rates are holding firm, no magical cuts on the horizon, the rental market remains fierce, and both buyers and sellers are adjusting their strategies in real time. Here's a breakdown of what happened in June, what likely coming next, and what you need to know, whether you're thinking of buying, selling, renting, or just watching the market with popcorn. Freehold homes, detached, semis, and townhouses saw steady activity in June, especially in the 1.1 million to 1.5 million range. Homes priced appropriately and offering value, like think separate basement units, updated interiors, or income potential, attracted plenty of interest. On the other hand, properties that came out of the gate overpriced are still sitting, and in some cases, quietly being pulled from the market. Buyers are cautious, and rightfully so. With mortgage rates holding steady at higher levels, affordability is top of mind. But well-presented homes in family-friendly neighborhoods like North York, Thornhill, and parts of Vaughan continue to move, just not with the frenzy we saw in past years. Sellers who accept the new pace of the market are still seeing solid results, while those holding out for 2021 prices are in for a long summer. Condo sales in June were relatively balanced. Downtown cores and transit-connected neighborhoods saw steady interest, particularly for two-bedroom units. These are popular among first-time buyers who've accepted the rate reality and are focusing on location and practicality. What's working? Modern layouts, well-managed buildings, units with parking and storage, and updated finishes. What's not? Overpriced units in older buildings with dated interiors and high maintenance fees. Buyers aren't in a rush. They're shopping with spreadsheets, not emotions. There has been some quiet interest from investors, again, but they're very selective. Cash flow is tight, and if a unit isn't delivering strong rent, they're walking. Still, for end users or long-term buyers, condos continue to offer relatively affordable entry points into home ownership, especially when compared to detached homes. So, what about rentals? If you're a landlord, June was a good month. If you're a renter, it was a lot of refreshing listings, chasing appointments, and hoping your application had just enough sparkle. The rental market remains extremely competitive across the board. One-bedroom condos are regularly leasing in the $2,300 to $2,700 range, depending on building age and location. Two bedrooms are comfortably above $3,000, and even higher for newer builds with amenities. Freehold rentals, especially full houses in desirable neighborhoods, are attracting multiple offers. Yes, rental bidding wars are still happening. We're seeing tenants offer longer lease terms, higher deposits, and full sets of paperwork, which include proof of income, letters from employers, even pet references. The lack of new rental inventory combined with strong population growth is keeping upward pressure on rent prices, and it doesn't look the relief is coming soon. On another hand, mortgage rates are still a tough pill. One of the biggest challenges in the current market is, unsurprisingly, financing. With inflation still proving sticky, the Bank of Canada has taken a better safe than sorry approach, and any talks of rate cuts have cooled off for now. It's not pretty and it's not cheap, but it's reality. Buyers are increasingly opting for shorter-term fixed rates in hopes that things will ease in 1 to 2 years. But those going variable today are doing it with eyes wide open. Bottom line, affordability is tight, and the cost of borrowing isn't likely to improve in the immediate future. So, what's next? Heading into the summer and early fall, we expect a continued shift toward a more balanced market, but one that still favors the prepared. Prices may soften slightly in some pockets due to higher inventory and slower rates, but don't expect a crash. If anything, we will likely see a grind. slower deals, more conditional offers, and buyers taking their sweet time. For landlords, the market remains strong. For tenants, unfortunately, it's still highly competitive with no immediate relief in sight. My advice for buyers: get pre-approved and lock in your rate early. Work with a realtor who knows the market and can spot value. Yes, that was a shameless plug. Be ready to act fast when the right property comes along, but don't feel pressured into bidding on everything. Consider homes with income potential to offset mortgage costs. An advice for sellers: don't overprice. Buyers are educated and cautious. Invest in professional staging and photography. First impressions still and always matter. Be prepared for conditional offers, especially financing and home inspections. Flexibility in closing dates and terms can help you seal the deal. And now let's take a closer look at detached home sales in Toronto and surrounding areas. In Toronto, average home price of detached home in June was $1.64 million. Prices went down by 6.66% compared to June of last year. Amount of sold properties was up by 4%. Inventory was up by almost 11%. On average, it takes 21 days for a detached home to be sold in Toronto today. In Vaughan, average selling price of a detached home in June was $1.68 million. 12.30% decline compared to June of last year. Amount of sold properties was down by 9%. Inventory was up by 4%. On average, it takes almost 1 month for a detached home to be sold in Vaughan today. In Richmond Hill, average selling price of detached home in June was $1.71 million. 16% decline compared to June of last year. Amount of sold properties was up by almost 5%. Inventory was up by 4.10%. On average, it takes 27 days for the detached home to be sold in Richmond Hill today. In Mississauga, average selling price of detached home was $1.42 million. 9% decline compared to June of last year. Amount of sold properties was down by 5%. Inventory was up by almost 24%. On average, it takes 24 days for detached home to be sold in Mississauga today. In Markham, average selling price of detached home in June was $1.63 million. 9% decline compared to sales in June of last year. Amount of sold properties was up by almost 13%. Inventory was up by almost 11%. On average, it takes 23 days for a detached home to be sold in Markham today. In Newmarket, average selling price of detached home in June was $1.24 million. 11.4% decline in sales compared to June of last year. Sales were down by 8.62%. Inventory was up by 26%. On average, it takes 18 days for a detached home to be sold in Newmarket today. In Aurora, average selling price of detached home in June was $1.59 million. 8% decline compared to sales in June of last year. Sales were down by 32%. Inventory was up by 3.3%. On average, it takes 1 month for a detached home to be sold in Aurora today. Average selling price of detached home in Innisfil in June was $956,000. Sale prices went down by almost 1% compared to June of last year. Sales were down by 17%. Inventory was down by almost 3%. It takes on average 42 days for a detached home to be sold in Innisfil today. King City, average selling price of detached home in June was $2.61 million. 9.6% decline in sale price compared to June of last year. Sales were down by 25%. Inventory was down by 12%. On average, it takes almost 1 month for a detached home to be sold in King City today. In Bradford, average selling price of detached home in June was $1.12 million. 6% decline compared to June of last year. Sales were down by almost 11%. Inventory was up by 58% in June. On average, it takes 39 days for a detached home to be sold in Bradford today. In Milton, average selling price of detached home in June was $1.27 million. 11% decline compared to June of last year. Sales were down by 21%. Inventory was also down by 10%. On average, it takes 28 days for a detached home to be sold in Milton today. In Stoufville, average selling price of detached home in June was $1.38 million. 26% decline compared to June of last year. Sales were at the same level, have not changed. New listings were up by almost 24%. On average, it takes 22 days for a detached home to be sold in Stoufville today. In Barrie, average selling price of detached home in June was $808,000, almost 8% decline compared to prices of last year. Sales were down by 3.25%, inventory was up by almost 13%. On average, it takes 25 days for a detached home to be sold in Barrie today. In Oakville, average selling price of a detached home in June was $1.96 million. Compared to last year, prices went up by 5.4%. Sales were down by 18% in June. Inventory was up by 6.25%. On average, it takes 28 days for a detached home to be sold in Oakville today. June didn't bring fireworks, it brought reality. A market where strategy matters, patience is key, and education trumps emotion. Whether you're looking to buy your first home, sell your long-time family property, or navigate the rental scene, the right guidance makes all the difference. And remember, even when rates are high, your agent should still be on point. If you're thinking of making a move or just want to talk strategy over coffee, you know where to find me. Until next time, stay smart, stay curious, and stay cool out there. If you'd like to receive your own personalized sales report about home sales on your street or in the neighborhood, please call me at 647-801-3401 or email me at sold@𝐝𝐢𝐿𝐻𝒠𝒂𝒔𝒐𝒗.com. Thanks for watching and see you next month.